Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is David Young and I'm a computer science student at Concordia University, Chicago. And today we're going to be wrapping up our software engineering basics series by talking about some challenges and professional issues faced by software engineers. This is the conclusion to our series. I would ask that if you've enjoyed the series thus far, that you would give this video a like, subscribe, and share this with a friend so that they can learn more about the wonderful world of software engineering. Software engineering is a uniquely challenging discipline. We've alluded to this in some of the other videos, but I want to take a couple minutes to talk about what makes software engineering so challenging. And for one, software engineering is complex. Every piece of software that you're going to encounter as a software engineer is unique. While some things are reusable, there's not a lot of copy paste, and every situation has different demands and requirements that it imposes. And furthermore, the complexity of a software engineering project doesn't grow in a linear fashion as the scope of the project increases. As you add more and more code, there's an exponential growth to the complexity of software engineering projects because those dependencies of code upon more code create room for more bugs and just increase the overall labor and time required for a project. Furthermore, software engineering also has a challenge caused by conformity because software development is highly constrained. Software has to fit not only the hardware of the system that the user has, but it's also got to fit within legal constraints and conform to ethical constraints also. So software is usually the final thing that's going to be added. There's already existing hardware systems and laws in place. And so software has to sort of bow and bend to these different systems and challenges that are in place, which can be a difficulty in the development of software. Furthermore, software is very, very changeable. And in fact, it's constantly changing because the world around it is constantly changing. New hardware is being developed, new security threats are emerging, new laws are changing what is legal and not legal with software. And furthermore, a lot of people, including clients, have unrealistic expectations for the ease of changing software. But in reality, changing software and refactoring your code takes a long time and there's a lot of investment. And so customers may make requests without understanding the impact of those requests. And so changing software takes a lot of effort, but it is always changing. And that's a constant challenge for software engineers. And finally, security. So in software engineering, we're going to be dealing with a lot of applications that involve sensitive information. This ranges from contact information for people to banking information and things like that. And so the software engineer becomes a custodian in many ways of people's sensitive information. And so you need to be trustworthy and make sure that you're doing good security practices. But the problem is that hackers are constantly evolving because there's a lot to be gained from breaking into software and getting access to people's personal information. And so software engineers are tasked with constant vigilance against security threats. And also because breaches can be absolutely disastrous. For instance, if hackers are able to get into your software, they can hold it for ransom and make it not function until you pay them. For instance, that's called ransomware. Or they could just leak information. So it's really, really crucial for software engineers to program securely and ensure the continued security of their applications. And that's can be especially challenging. We talked in the last video about how there are ways that companies attempt to cut costs. But some of these ways, which can provide a boost to efficiency and decrease the budget, can have consequences that might not be foreseen. Because software is so important to global infrastructure, think about all the pieces of software that you interact with on a daily basis, from anything that's on your phone to traffic light controls to the software in your car. if software breaks, there are big consequences. And so it's important that you don't skip out on making sure that your software is going to work. Imagine, for instance, if a traffic light malfunctioned, that would be extremely problematic. And so the software needs to be reliable and consistent. And if you cut corners to get it done fast or more cheaply, you're not going to be able to ensure that reliability and efficiency. So all this means that software engineers are responsible for more than a paycheck. Oftentimes they're keeping track of, as we talked about before, sensitive information, but also there are many ways in which software protects people and keeps people safe in a physical sense. And so, for instance, some areas that have a high demand for reliability in software are, for instance, banking systems. A breach in a banking system could mean someone's entire life savings are lost or transferred to a hacker. Self-driving cars are another example where people's lives are directly impacted by good software, and they could be ended by software malfunctions. And so it's really crucial for software engineers to make sure that they're doing a good job in those cases. And then finally, AI alignment. This one may not be super obvious, but if you are a developer for AI and you're not looking out for, you're cutting corners and you're not properly aligning your AI, it can spread harmful opinions that can impact situations in the real world and impact people. So all these demonstrate how software engineering is more than just a job, but it's a responsibility for the well-being and oftentimes the safety and security of the users of your product. So the engineer's responsibility goes pretty deep. Professionalism in software engineering is not simply about following rules of etiquette, but there are certain principles and codes that software engineers need to follow. Ethical software engineers are going to maintain confidentiality. When you have access to sensitive information about customers or you have a contract with a company, software engineers need to be trustworthy and to not disclose confidential information to the public. Software engineers need also to not lie about their skill sets. Consider an example where someone misrepresents their abilities and is working on an algorithm for a self-driving car. Having an incompetent person in that role is going to threaten people's lives. And so it's really important that software engineers be honest and forthright about their skill sets so that they're not in over their heads and endangering people in a variety of ways. Software engineers are also mindful of intellectual property laws and making sure that they respect the intellectual property rights of those with whom they work, particularly the companies with whom they're contracting. And finally, software engineers use their powers for good, not evil. Knowing a lot about computers enables you to do malicious activities that you might not be able to do otherwise and gain access to people's personal information. And so software engineers recognize their responsibility to their customers, and they use their understanding to protect customers and users, not to destroy them or use it for personal gain. An example of a codified set of ethics for software engineers is the IEEE Code of Ethics. And so this is something to which all IEEE members agree to uphold, and it includes not only principles of respect that should be common to all people, but also principles that particularly apply to software engineering, namely honesty about your skill set and attention to the importance of good products and careful software design. I want to thank you so much for watching this series. If you like this, please check out my other videos, my Intro to Computer Networking series and my DNS Basics series. Please leave any questions that you have about this video in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe this video. Thank you so much for watching. I want to give a very special thank you to Dr. Victor Govindaswamy, who's been an invaluable mentor for me as I've been learning about software engineering. Thank you and have a good day.